So the first thing you're going to do is get a reference photo of your key from first year assignments on the server in Pickup. Then, if you guys can remember how to make a template, you're going to have a template layer here with your key in it. Just all you have to do is when you place it, File Place, you're going to check Template. That will lock it. That will dim the image down a little bit, and Print is unchecked, so that way it won't print. All right. So your job is to draw the outline, add a gradient, add a 3D effect to it, and then put some details on it like that. So that's your goal. Okay, that's our purpose here to do this. So what I wanted to show you is that this is not that difficult. If I'm creating a new layer here, okay, let's pretend I didn't do that other stuff. I'm just using the regular pen tool, and just like you guys did with your last couple of assignments, I'm just drawing the shape. So straight lines are very easy, right? Point to point. Then I'm going to draw a curve that goes out this way. What do we call that? The Bezier curve. Yes, very good. Very nice. And so we have that going out this way, and draw the thing like this and pull it. All right. Now one thing you'll notice as I'm drawing here is that it's filled. So you guys are probably going to want to make sure that when you draw, you're going to set your fill to none, you know, the box with the line through it. So that way as you're drawing, that does not get in your way. So this is all pretty easy stuff. Okay. I'm going to just make a shortcut here, just for demonstration purposes only, so I'm not putting those other curves in. Again, this should be fairly easy for you guys to just trace over this, you know, and get all those points and all that kind of stuff. Again, just to make this go faster, I'm just going to take a little shortcut here, and I'm just going to click here. All right. That is a closed path. You guys know that's a closed path because at the end of my path there, see how that like turned to a little circle? No, I have to undo that. See that little circle there? So when I click that, now it's a closed path. Closed paths are important because if we want to fill it with a shape, we know that if it's closed, it's going to fill the way that we want it. Also, closed paths are important because we're also going to make this into a compound path. Does anybody know why we need to make this a compound path? Do you see any holes in this object? Yeah, there's a hole right here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that next. And I'm not trying to get perfect here, just for the purpose of demonstration. You guys get till tomorrow to finish this up because I want these to look portfolio worthy. And what I mean by that is that, you know, something that you can be proud of, something that you really did your best work on. All right. So now I have these two shapes created. If I go to my outline view, you can see they're just paths. So now what I want to do is I want to fill these with a gradient. All right. We have some pre-made gradients for you guys. If you recall, here I'm going to hide a couple of these panels. I'm going to hide the stroke panel as well. Inside of Swatches at the bottom left-hand corner, that's our library of swatches. You guys have used this before, didn't you? What did you guys get in here before? Right, the Pantone colors. That's inside the color books, right? Well, what we're going to do, we're going to go to gradients and look at all the things we have. We have fruits and vegetables, gems and jewels. We have this one called metals. So I'm going to open that up. And if I select gold, well, I guess first I need to select the object. I made a mistake because what I did was I put gold on the path and not on the fill. what we want to do is this. I'm going to select these objects. I'm going to select the fill. Now you see it. Pretty cool, huh? I want to show you guys the gradient tool. I'm going to select just this part of the key for now. The gradient tool is underneath the paint bucket sometimes, so sometimes it might not be right on top. It's down here in the bottom left-hand corner. Yours might be in a different spot of your, oh, I got to click on this. Yours may be in a different spot on your panel, on your tool panel, but this is basically it. So if I click on this, something happened here. Ah, there we are. All right, so this is my gradient. As I move these things around, see how the light is moving from one part to the next? This is like a mid-tone. This is like a highlight. Remember yesterday we talked about highlights, mid-tones, shadows? So this has all that. I can also select the end, make it longer or shorter. And I can rotate this by clicking out here and dragging it. So what I want to do is drag this in the direction of the key. It's more natural that way. You know, really, it's whatever direction that light is in. So depending on your reference, you know, that might be in a different spot. You know, so I could go back to here and try to copy it. You can see there's not a lot of gradient on the top, but there is definitely one on the inside here. Now, on my one that I did before, I'm going to open this up. I made a separate gradient for in there. So let me show you how to edit the gradients real quick. I'm going to open up the gradient panel, double click it. Can you guys see this up here on the left? I know it's a little bit small. So with that selected, that same slider that I was manipulating here is reflected here. You can take colors off like that. You can also hold the Option key. Remember, Option is like how you make copies of things in Illustrator. I'm going to hold the Option key and I'm copying that color. And as long as you have your object selected, it will change the gradient on that object. Pretty cool, huh? Gradients take a little time to get used to. So be patient with yourselves. This is what I ended up with this gradient right here. Okay? Now, I'm going to turn this off for a second. So what I showed you guys was how to do the pass, but you know what I should do is I should show you guys how to make that whole again. All right, so I'm going to just go select these two objects. Does anybody remember the shortcut to make a compound path? Command 8 is the shortcut. Okay, I had it written on the board yesterday. Object, compound path, make. Command 8 is the shortcut. And as long as you created this, where you create the bigger shapes, the bottom shapes first, and then the top shapes, this should work for you pretty easily. Okay, so this is different than just toning this white. I mean, it actually pokes a hole in it. Just like I mentioned yesterday how the letter O actually has a hole in it. You know, it's not just filled with another color. All right. So what I've showed you guys is we refreshed you guys about using the pen tool. We showed you guys how to use the gradient tool. Refreshed how to put that, that hole in there. So like Ethan, yours has 3 holes in it, right? So it's very important that you get, you know, these compound paths right. The last thing I want to show you guys is an effect. This is a 3D effect called Extrude. You know, an extrusion, I don't know if you guys have ever made anything out of metal or whatever, but like pipe is extruded, you know, like you can have extruded metal or whatever. What it does is it adds an extra dimension to your drawing. So right now the drawing is just flat. You know, it has paths that have an X coordinate, Y, but there's no depth. So I'm going to go to 3D. If you want to write this down, go ahead. Extrude and bevel. And I'm going to click Preview. And give it a second. See what that did? Now the thing is, it put my extrusion on the top there, but I don't want it that way. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take dimension. Okay, that's on the vertical axis. And I'm going to set that to 0. Now what I can do is I can click and hold on this. Can you guys see how like the 3D thing is working? This isn't a true 3D object, it's a 3D effect. So I want this to be right about there. All right, see how it put that color over there? Now that color is gray because I didn't put a stroke on, I didn't give the color, the stroke a color. That was what I did wrong here. So I'm going to click on the stroke. If I put a red stroke on here, watch what happens. It puts a shaded red on there. So what we want is probably like a shaded kind of gold color. No, that's too green. Something like that. That looks pretty good. And then it did flatten my image out a little bit, so I'm just going to pull this down. Now here's the important thing to know about this 3D effect. It is just an effect. If I go to my outlines, you can see like tried to output this to a 3D printer or something, nothing would happen because it's not a true 3D object. But it is kind of cool to use this. It's really handy, like if you were doing a logo, not logo, but if you were doing some, and you wanted that text to appear 3D, you could do that, all right? You can extrude it really fat, so you could have things go way back in space. All right, so that's really the end of my demo. The last thing that you guys are going to want to do, though, is you're going to want to put some details here. So, you know, it had some type on it. What's a good tool to use if you're going to put type on it? The type tool, yes, absolutely. So use the type tool, rotate it around. That's the end of my demonstration. I did put a drop shadow on this. I think what I did was I made an extra layer. I can show you guys how I did that real quick. I'm going to hide that layer. I'm going to hide my template. And I'm going to hide the top layer. All right. All that is, you guys, is a shape. But that shape has an effect, which is a blur effect. I went to Effect, Blur, and I went to Gaussian Blur, and I blurred it 10 pixels. So if you guys do want to do something like that and put that drop shadow on, I highly recommend using that. There. See how it took my path and blurred the edges? And then once you put that underneath everything, it kind of gives it more of a 3D effect. Except that's the wrong one. There it is. All right. So are we good? All right. What I want to know is, what are your questions? I know you guys have lots. Pardon? Yes, the thing is still recording.
Exotic butters. There.
And we're out.
What's recording? You had something recording the whole time?